Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this latest broadcast of HBMA Live. Today, we wanted to give you a preview of HBMA's 2021 conference, the Healthcare Revenue Cycle Conference. We have two of our presenters here. You get a chance to meet with them, hear from them, talk with them, or send comments and questions if you want to by the chat. And so first, I want to introduce Ed Kenney from Relatient. He's the Director of Revenue Cycle. And we also have Michele Howard. She's District Manager for Performance Resources. Ed and Michele, welcome. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Well, I appreciate you both joining us from different locations. And Ed, it looks like you're on the road a little bit, so we really appreciate that too.
Absolutely.
So, Ed, you've been involved in the revenue cycle management industry for a number of years. Just curious, for our watchers, our viewers, how did you get involved in the industry? What brought you to it?
Yeah, great question, Kurt. I started as into the revenue cycle, very focused on patient payments. Worked for a very large payment company and explored how we could partner and bring technology into the marketplace to assist patient payments on the back end of the revenue cycle, and then continue to explore where that technology may apply. And I've been doing that now this is the 10th year.
Great. And what you'll be talking about is the sort of the customer experience as a patient, which has been a little bit of a shift in healthcare.
That's right. With the increase in high deductible health plans, the resulting balance has become, not just something that you can write off at the end of the day. It really makes a difference if we collect the patient component of the receivable. And it really kind of hinges, will you be profitable or not? And that's what we're seeing. The importance has increased dramatically.
Right. And Michele, you've come to HBMA from a little bit of a different direction. So you come with an HR background.
Yes. Yeah, we had owned a few family businesses all since I was in high school, all through college. And then after I got out of college, of course, I joined family businesses, and we did a lot of hiring and we made a lot of mistakes. So one of the things we did around 2000 is found this company and develop our products to help people hire from small to medium-sized businesses. So we've been doing this about 22 years, helping folks, do a better job, find people that fit their company, and also stay compliant, follow the rules and all that kind of good stuff. And then just do a better job at it and streamline their hiring process.
Right. And, the last couple of years, well, even before the pandemic, there certainly was a shift in terms of how companies were operating. Some companies have been working remotely for a number of years. Some companies have been focused on patients as customers, from your perspective, for a number of years. But the pandemic really accelerated that. What is your sort of sense, both of you, from what you see from what's happened over the last year and a half? And, where do you see the industry going, coming out of the pandemic once we're out of it and have it behind us?
Well, one of the things that we've seen, Kurt, is a return to focus on patient engagement and using solutions and technology to reach the patient no matter where they are. So that rapid move towards telehealth, tele-engagement. How do we engage with the patient in their location, not necessarily reliant on having the patient present in person? And then the ripple effect of what that means throughout the revenue cycle. So extending the opportunity to engage with the patient for registration, capturing financial information, collecting a copay remotely, and then delivering care, filing and processing the payment for that care, and then collecting on the back end. Several challenges that have been created, but I think it's actually led us to a better place. We're now reaching more patients and providing more options for care where the patients need that care.
Right. And Michele, from your side, on the workforce side, again, some companies were pioneers before the pandemic in switching to remote workforces, but that's something that every company on the planet just about out there had to find some sort of way to adapt, unless they were truly sort of limited by their brick and mortar presence. what do you see moving forward? Times have certainly changed. We've adapted, but
Yeah.
how have we done with the adaptations, and what's next?
I think we've done a really good job. I must say, following up on Ed's comment, as a patient myself, I've been so impressed at what everyone has done, just from that side, the consumer side. But then on my back end side, on the HR side, you're right. A lot of companies had some remote work. There was a lot of mix, and now everybody went to it. And I have been really impressed with just our clients learning, and also everybody being very gracious about technology, errors and challenges. We've all had them, right? So now we all kind of laugh and be like, oh, right, okay, it's not a big deal anymore. And we're all getting really good at it. We've seen a huge increase in video interviewing because people, couldn't be in person. And I think a lot of it is here to stay. I think some people are going to, just prefer that. With hiring and all that, and even just doing all the paperwork, getting all the paperwork through texting, which is now secure, and you can do that, getting everybody onboarded and stuff like that. So I think a lot of it will be here to stay, but there's always going to be also a portion of people that want to go back to the in-person. So, depending on who you're interviewing with, whether they're going to do a video interview or in person. And it'll be probably a mix depending on the industry as well. How convenient is it to have people come back in person or not?
Right. And from some HBMA members, I've heard anecdotally that it's been tough finding staff filling positions. Is that what you're hearing and seeing as well, Michele?
Yes, in every industry, every state, across the board, everyone is having difficulty. Yeah, that's a big, it's a big challenge. And, we were talking right before the call about how we're seeing that people are using multiple software programs. They're using recruiters. They're trying to cast a wide net, which everyone is doing a really, really good job. But what we're finding is it doesn't matter how many places you are, where your presence is. It's more of a marketing and how you're marketing your job. So we've kind of made a shift in focusing on how you write your job ads and what you're saying in those ads, because you're really marketing yourself, your company, and the position. It's not just throwing a job description up online anymore. It's very different. So we've tried to help our clients get really good at that.
Right. No, that's important. You're right, especially in a competitive market like we see now.
Right.
It's interesting having the two of you together. So some people might wonder, well, why did we pick someone who's going to talk about patients as consumers and someone talking about HR? But I think there's a nice sort of linkage between both of you and the topics you're talking about at the conference. And that is, for the revenue cycle management, it's about revenue, right? It's about the numbers. And we get so focused on the numbers and metrics, which are important. We've talked about that on the show. But you're talking about the human component, which maybe is overlooked.
Yeah, no, I think it's super important, Kirk, for us to remember that in the revenue cycle, we're collecting payment for care that's been delivered. And care involves a person, and it involves a provider. And in that responsibility that we take on in the revenue cycle is very challenging to remember the human aspect of that. What we're trying to do with the technology that we bring to the table is to improve the communication between the provider and the patient, so the patient has a better understanding of what's going on through every step of the process, both from a scheduling, registration, when I'm supposed to show up for my appointment, what type of appointment it is, how I'm supposed to get there. So improving navigation, getting the patient to the location for their service, whether that's at home or at the facility. And then the follow-up information that should come after care, including the payment responsibility, and effectively communicating that in a way that the patient understands what payment is due and how they can pay. And again, I think the pandemic has opened our eyes to those remote environments that we can deliver care, but it's also made us really focus on the process, on how we engage the patient as a human through that whole process. And I think on the recovery end of this pandemic, there's gonna be a lot of improvements that we've made.
Hmm. Yeah, I expect it will continue. I mean, the nice thing about telehealth, it certainly expands access and makes it easier for people to get the care. But at the same time, sometimes a little bit it can be lost in the virtual interaction, whether that be, in a provider setting or within an HR setting, especially with interviewing or bringing people on board and training.
Yeah.
But I think you both made points about how much we've learned. I think the access portion is really important because there are people who might have had trouble getting access or might have had to travel too far or during a pandemic don't want to expose themselves or others to risk.
Sure.
Well, Kurt, right before the call, we were talking about population health, and there was a huge reluctance for people to go back to their care provider at the height of the pandemic. There was this mental concern or roadblock or blocker between getting the patient back in for whatever that regular care is, keeping them on a care plan and keeping them present with their provider. And, one of the things that we found was as we effectively deployed telehealth technology and enabling the provider and patient to be connected, we also found that we could do outbound campaigns that were very focused on certain diagnoses or chronic care to reach those patients that, for one reason or another, may or may not have been able to get to the office, whether it was a mental block or lack of transportation or, a fear factor. But with telehealth technology, we're able to reach the patient in almost any situation as long as there's connectivity.
Right.
Yeah.
That's important. And it's interesting how you mentioned it's a way to overcome some of those roadblocks, whatever they might be, whether it's sort of the person's sort of apprehensions or physical distance or, other factors that may be, a barrier.
Right before our call too, Michele was talking about some of the changes that were going on in the hiring and recruiting process, specifically to video engagement. And I think it's another segment of, what's one of those changes that may become permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah, those who are interviewing, I've had to interview for some openings in the organizations I serve as well. And it's interesting, having we had done sort of Zoom interviews or virtual interviews beforehand, but now it's all that way, and it's certainly been a shift. It also opens up the number of possible candidates we've got.
It can't help. Definitely.
Sorry, Ed, what were you going to say?
One of the interesting things that we've done as a company during this pandemic period, and we have several remote employees as well. We've tried to do, engagements that are not just about business, but, Michele, to your point about how to build the culture of in the company in that remote environment. We've done things like, the lunch and learn opportunities and playing a game together during a 15-minute scheduled time online with everyone, just to engage people across the company, across different departments, to see people, in the video environment, helps them to understand and that it's not all about business. There are things that go on at work that are about building the community that we have at work and the friendships that we have at work. And again, I think while we are challenged in this new environment, there are ways to overcome some of those challenges.
I like to hear that. That is awesome. I love the games. We have a wheel that we spin at the end of our meetings to do prizes and stuff. And I just love people's creativity. If you can't be in person, let's do something a little fun at the end of the business meetings or interviews or whatever.
I'd love to see the wheel, Michele.
I know. It's like a Wheel of Fortune kind of. It's electronic, digital. It's pretty neat.
Cool. You both had quite a bit of experience just in industry as well. I know none of us know the future, right? It's impossible to know it. But what is your sense on where things are going, just in terms of just general operations? We've seen so many companies have to shift to remote operations, and hear anecdotally about some companies scrambling to find less office space, smaller office space. Maybe not even coming back in terms of being together in person. Do you think that maybe, what's your sense? Is this sort of a short-term development, or is this really a new change in how we all work and live? Is this the way things are going to be 5, 10 years from now, that we're all really working remotely and not coming together in person? I know you can't know, but what's your sense? I'm just curious. Maybe we're sort of spinning the wheel. What does your sort of wheel of the future say to you?
I think it's here to stay. I think we're going to see a mix. I think it's going to be, part of the corporate culture and the industry, what the industry allows or not, and then how many people do want to come back. And it's going to be really interesting to see how we get over this immediate hump right now of an apparent shortage of workers. I mean, we know we have human beings, but I'm not real clear on, is it that they're fearful of coming back? Are they making more money staying home? Is it a mixture? So I think we're going to have to see companies be very flexible, very diverse, and have multiple options for people, because you just can't predict, like you said, you can't predict how each employee or potential candidate is, where their comfort level is, whether it's with the technology or working from home. Some people don't want to work from home. They just don't thrive in that environment. That's another one of the things that we do, is we help companies find out which candidates are going to be best remote workers versus people that just, it's not going to motivate them. It's not a good fit for them. And we can help companies determine that in advance, who's going to be the better candidate for a remote position if you can have it be remote. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
It will be. And Ed's comments, made me think it's great to, have those sort of informal ways to create those connections. You're right, Ed. We work together, we become friends in the office, and there are also the informal interactions, just passing someone in the hallway or in the, your lunchroom or whatever. But one thing I guess is maybe hardest to transition to this sort of virtual or hybrid work environment is the culture. How do you, and Michele, I don't know if you have any insights for our viewers, or if you've thought about this, how does a company inculcate its culture on new team members, new employees, when you're not together?
Yeah, you have to be very creative. And I do like Ed's, the things that they've done where you're creating the games or whatever it is. We also, through my SHRM group, I'm on a board of directors of our local SHRM chapter. We do what we normally used to do after hours. We would have a once a month, and it would be an HR meeting, and it would be together. And instead of meeting at that, at the vineyard or wherever we were, we are doing them online, and people are having a challenge with it. But just trying to expand, be creative, and definitely add things in that you normally would have done in person, and bring people in. You have to do it through video, or you have to do it through games, or team building exercises. There's lots of different things you can do, but you definitely have to be very creative.
One of the things that our HR group has done is been intentional about it. They have made a very smart and measured engagement across the organization, always timely, with invitations, encouragements, prizes for participation. Things that say, hey, we're reaching out, we're wanting to make this happen, because this is a fun place to work, and we're trying to recreate that fun environment even in the remote locations.
That's really interesting. And I just remember, how new technology companies were sort of derided a little bit back in the early 2000s, because they had foosball tables and ping pong tables and maybe sort of,
Right.
Arcade games. But, Michele, the idea of sort of trying to, gamify the work experience, I think that is important, because people also have, I think, gained a new appreciation for work-life balance, and
Yeah.
there's less that they're willing to do for their workplace now.
Yeah. And that just what both of you just said reminds me is we did create a portal even in our software to do employee referral contests. So part of that HBMA job portal is a contest, and all the employees can become engaged. They all have logins. They can refer their friends and family if they, seems like people that are in a certain industry know other people also in that industry, like nurses know nurses. And so if you're working at a place that's a great place to work, other people, and it's like, oh, you're switching jobs, or, oh, you're coming back from having a baby, you got to come apply at a job at our location, So we do have in that portal a place where all the employees can refer candidates in. Then, you go through the business portion of the interviewing, video interviewing and stuff like that. But then they can also win prizes like Ed was talking about. I have a construction company that does that, and I think they give $1,500 for a new candidate, an employee referral that comes in and stays with the company for 90 days. And I was like, wow, how fun is that?
Our company. Yeah, Michelle, our company's doing the same thing. Again, best employees come from friends of employees. And if you recommend somebody in for an open position and they stay for 90 days, there's a reward.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah. The referrals, or maybe it'll be viral recruiting. Maybe that's something that we sort of term that gets used in the future. And Ed, this is also sort of thinking, what happens again with the patient sort of customer experience. So we're hearing about how, recruiting and employee retention has changed. Are we, again, we don't know the future. What's your sense though when it comes to patients in the future? Are we going to have to gamify the provider doctor experience for patients?
Let's do
it. Well, we may have to do something like that. At least to keep the patient engaged in a remote environment. We may have to gamify it a little bit.
Yeah, it's
That'd
interesting.
Be fun.
It would be certainly a different model, or an evolved model. And, it's being aware that doctors need to worry about what their online presence is and their reputation, and, sites like Yelp and other review sites. Maybe it's really not that far off, given that there's always that sort of threat that if things don't go well with the patient.
Some of the employer-sponsored health insurance plans are doing a gamification around wellness programs already, and engaging the patient to walk so many steps and have leaderboards where there's competition among the different employees, and we're all patients. Again, you think about where this overlaps, Kurt. While we were talking earlier, as employees of our companies, we're also patients too, and all members of a health plan. And I think that's where kind of all the pieces are tied together.
Absolutely. We all have a body we need to care for. We know who we need to go to just to help us with that. So it's a great point.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've heard some of my friends talking about that with the steps. They even get the free pedometer or whatever to count their steps. And then some of them have programs like if you quit smoking or something. You're right. I do remember hearing some friends talk about that. I think it's great.
Yeah, we've done it here in the company I work for.
Have you?
Yeah, it's been a couple years now.
Yeah. We'll have to expand those programs maybe.
Yeah, you're right. I know we've got a few viewers out there. I don't know if any of them have any questions or comments for our guest before we wrap it up for the week. We'll wait a moment and see if we get any to come in. And sometimes it's quiet, and that's okay too.
Yeah. That just means we've done such an excellent job explaining everything.
Exactly. Well, you'll do an even better job in Dallas explaining more.
That's right.
We can only hope.
I have full confidence. Absolutely. Well, Michele and Ed, thank you so much for joining us this week as guests. Looking forward to meeting with both of you, seeing you both in Dallas in early September. And I think you're going to both have some great sessions, and we're able to give a sense of, what it's all about in terms of what you'll be talking about and some of the trends that the industry is, like so many other industries, is working through.
Yeah. It sounds great, Kirk. Look forward to seeing you there.
I'll see you there too.
Look forward to it.
Take care, everybody. See you in
Bye-bye.
Dallas.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
see you in Dallas. Bye bye.